Hi, my name is Abigail Poliski, and today I'll be talking about the influence of the elderly. Specifically, I want to talk about the effects the elderly have when they are grandparents on their grandchildren. So, there are a variety of effects that the elderly have. They have, and I will be exploring the bonds that they have with their grandchildren, the family history their grandchildren are able to learn, and the livelihood that grandchildren and grandparents have on each other. So, first with bonds. So, what makes us close to our grandparents? The first thing that makes us close to our grandparents is our geographical closeness. 60% of grandparents live close to their grandchildren, and this causes them to be closer and have a better relationship with their grandchildren. Another thing is emotional bonding. 72% of grandparents view grandparenting as the most important thing to do in their old age. So if they're feeling that this is the most important thing that they need to do, they are trying to have good bonding and good emotional bonds and good support for their grandchildren when they need it. And then another part of bonds is the frequency of contact. So when children and grandchildren see their grandparents coming to their sporting events, their concerts, their birthdays, their activities, they see that their grandparents want to have contact with them and want to be there for them, and this can create a stronger bond. There is also an effect from divorce. If the kids spend more time with the mother than the father, then they are bound to spend more time with the grandparents of the parents of the mother than the parents of the father, and so there will be a stronger relationship there with the grandparents. Um, so grandparents give grandchildren um, lots of benefits when they have strong bonds. So they give them a sense of who they are, a feeling of being special. They develop social and emotional skills, and they have a high self-esteem. Another part of bonds is the cultural differences. Around the world, there are many grandparents, especially in like Asian countries, who view themselves as the primary caregiver. The parents are out some doing um, building career opportunities, and so that causes the grandparents to take care of the grandchildren and be a part of their lives. In the Mexican American culture, however, grandparents saw their grandchildren most frequently and provided the most support for the grandchildren and their parents, and had the most satisfying relationships with their grandchildren. And I thought this was interesting to know. There are also gender differences. So, grandmothers have closer relationships with children and grandchildren and give more personal advice, probably because of the way cultures see the effect of mothers and their effect on society. So, another part of this was family history. Grandparents are able to help grandchildren connect more to their ancestors because not only are they an example of the ancestor, but they talk about their parents and their grandparents. And so the grandchildren are able to see more fully and know more fully about their ancestors. Another reason they provide good knowledge about family history is they provide a knowledge of where grandchildren or where a family comes from. So they provide knowledge of um, the family's roots and where they grew up and where they established and how they got to where they are. And this is significant in a grandchild's life. Another purpose of grandparents is the ability to increase the livelihood of grandchildren, and grandchildren are able to increase the livelihood of grandparents. So, with grandchildren, they have a higher self esteem, they have less behavioral and emotional issues, they have higher confidence, and then gain knowledge from their grandparents. They have high self esteem and high confidence because the grandparents are there supporting them, they're there helping them to gain knowledge and feel like they are becoming successful in their lives. And they have less behavioral and emotional issues because grandparents can be there to have a break from parents or have a break from friends and have that sturdy, loving character in their lives. Grandparents benefit from grandchildren because they are able to live longer. The grandchildren are biological reward. The grandchildren provide emotional fulfillment, and they provide purpose. When you have a purpose in life, you are more able to see the reason why you are alive and why you're going about life. And grandchildren give grandparents this purpose because they provide activities that the grandparents should go to and support that they should provide for their grandchildren. So, with grandparents, death is inevitable, and this conversation happens a lot of the times. And this is sometimes the first experience that grandchildren or people will have with death, and it will be it'll be a deep feelings felt by family members and by friends, and this can be your first experience. And most cultures believe death is not the end because maybe they have this religious background that there is a life after death, there is an ability to see God again, or they have a different cultural background where they know that there is life after death and they're able to spend time with their families. In the US, however, there is a more death denying and death avoiding culture where they'll deny or avoid that death is going to happen because they don't want to have those hard conversations. They don't want to see death happening in the streets or in places that they will have to talk about it. And because a lot of this is going on, or the healthcare industry is so much further along, 80% of deaths now occur in hospitals or other institutions rather than freak accidents or other happenings in death, where the death is more likely to be a chronic illness or old age or something along those lines, where you're in a hospital and that is the scene where the death is happening. So, coping with death, um, others acknowledging the pain of death is very important. A lot of times with grandparents, people will minimize that pain because they'll say, well, the grandparent was going to die anyways, they lived a long and healthy life. And this can be hard because it feels like people aren't acknowledging the pain, but they're minimizing it, saying that it shouldn't be as great of a pain because they already have lived their whole life. Another way to coping with it, people need to focus on their eating and their sleeping and being around family members and being around people that will support them. And with grandparents, they can keep a keepsake to remember them, to talk about their grandparents with their children or with the other friends and family in their life. And people need to find healthy ways to express these thoughts and feelings of sadness or death to their family or their friends. And this is very important in the coping process. In my life, this was where I focused on it most. When I was cleaning out my grandmother's house, I was focusing on how her life affected me and what she would want me to do now that she's passed. So our bond was a very strong bond. She lived close to me. She was my grandmother, and that always made her closer to me. And I was always able to talk to her about things and be close to her. With family history, she emphasized this greatly. She actively showed us our connectedness to our ancestors. She taught us about our families, her parents, and where they came from. And this was important to me because her mother is my namesake, and I was able to learn more about her and learn more about how I could become, or, the feelings that you get when you're named after someone. And she expanded my livelihood in every way mentioned. She gave me a higher self-esteem. She caused me to have less behavioral and emotional issues. I had higher confidence because of her, and I gained so much knowledge because of her. I think that all these reasons came from her supporting me, providing a place for me to go to talk about things or just take a nap and relax and feel like there aren't a lot of stressors where I can go to find peace. And this is how she increased my livelihood. When she died, I was not there. She did not die in a hospital like 80% of people do. And I received a phone call saying that she died, and this kind of devastated me. I was in the spot where I was like, what do I do from here? Like, not a lot of these people know who I am. I just started college. Like, where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to find comfort? So I decided that I needed to tell the friends that I had about this pain that I was feeling, about what happened. And they were able to acknowledge my pain, and I was able to talk to my family, and they were able to acknowledge my pain, and I was able to acknowledge theirs. And together we took care of each other, and I was able to take care of my family when they were feeling pain. And while I was cleaning out her house, I was able to learn more about her and learn about the ways that she would organize herself, or the way she would always take care of her yard. And I found many keepsakes and important items that I could take home and I could remember her by and show other people in my life. And I found peace in doing these things for her after she was gone, and serving others and finding homes for her things and donating her items to places that needed them, doing things the way that she wanted them to happen. And I felt that this was a great coping process in my own development. So I gained lots of sources from the book and from blogs and from a lot of coping websites to help me understand grandparent bonds and the effects of their death. And I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you.